everyone, welcome back to my channel. We're talking goals in this video. I'm pretty sure everyone has been uploading their 2019 goals videos for the past couple weeks, and I am just going to be one of those booktubers. I personally like doing these videos, not necessarily to hold myself accountable on and to like look back on at the end of 2019, but just so that I have like concrete things that I am letting you guys know that I plan on doing throughout the year, so it'll kind of explain things when they come up. But a lot of the goals that I set myself are more just like keeping up with things that I know that I enjoy that I might forget about, if that makes sense. So let's talk numbers first of all. Let's get the numbered things out of the way. The numbered goals that I have. Like everybody does, I set a Goodreads reading challenge every year. I've been doing this for so many years. Let me grab my phone real quick and see how many times I've actually done this challenge. So I have technically been doing this since 2014, and I have completed my Goodreads goals since then. If you guys haven't seen Ariel Bassett's videos about the color of the Goodreads challenge, I highly recommend it. Check it out. It's completely unrelated to all of this stuff, but her videos are gold. But for the past 5 years, I have always set my Goodreads reading challenge at 100 books. Which some years it was tougher to achieve when I was working stricter jobs that I was doing a lot more of and I didn't have time for reading. Other years I far surpassed it. So that was a good average number for me to hit. That's basically about 2 books a week, which is fairly attainable, especially if you're an audiobook listener like I am. This year is actually going to be the first year that I am increasing that goal. And I'm not increasing it by that much because I still don't like the constant pressure of like, I don't know if I'll meet it. I like knowing that I'm able to read 100 books a year, so that's what I set it at. If I surpass it, that's great. But I don't want the challenge of striving to reach something that I don't know if I can attain it. So I have increased my goal to 150 books, which to a lot of people, that seems like an extreme amount of reading, and to some people, that's honestly nothing. I know people who read 300 books a year. How they do that, I don't know. But for me, 150 books, based on this past year, based on 2018, I read 165 books easily. And a lot of that is thanks to the fact that I have a new job that allows me to listen to audiobooks while I'm there. So I can almost get through an audiobook a day if I'm doing that. But in theory, I have an entire year of listening ahead of me, so I feel like 150 is very easily attainable, but that also is factoring in the idea that things could change. And 150 is still fairly attainable to me. So that 150 is obviously going to include new releases and backlist titles of YA. YA will forever be my favorite go-to genre to read from, and they're easy, they're generally quick to get through, and they have my heart. I will always be reading most of the new releases as they come out and keeping up with backlist titles. That's what my reading generally is. So for this year, I'm actually going to start challenging myself to read out of my comfort zone. So in that 150 books, I would like to read 10 classics. I am one of the people that I am fortunate enough to actually be very well read in classics. I read a ton in high school in all of my English classes that I was taking. So I entered the world as a fresh little 18-year-old having read more classics than most people have in their entire life. So I never took that for granted, but I didn't have the like necessary push to get me to actually read things that were more intimidating, thought-provoking, denser than the average book that I read until I discovered audiobooks. And audiobooks actually kind of like reopened my eyes to classics. But that was like 5 or 6 years ago when I first discovered my love of audiobooks and that it made classics more attainable to me. I have since fallen off the bandwagon of that, and I would like to consciously try and read more. I have 10 titles that I am tentatively planning on reading, but I'm not going to like list those right now. I'm not going to like set those in stone. They're just ones that I think I will be interested in, or ones that I've always wanted to read but never got around to. So the goal is 10. We'll see how I do on that. In that same vein, I would like to read 10 books that are out of my comfort zone. This can include classics. This can be an overlap for me because classics are out of my comfort zone. Classics are generally out of everyone's comfort zone. But this also for me is going to mean books for genres that I generally don't reach towards. So it might be historical fiction or thrillers or that's pretty much sci-fi, I guess. I don't read that much sci-fi, but generally books that I pick from those genres end up being some of my favorites just because it's a genre that I haven't touched, so it's kind of this whole new world to me and it blows my mind. So that's kind of a crossover from classics, but I would like to read 10 books that are completely out of my comfort zone, which is generally going to be not YA, not fantasy, not fluffy romance, things that are going to challenge my brain. And that challenge is actually going to cross over to my next one, which is to read 12 book of the month picks. This doesn't necessarily have to be books that were like came out that month, but Book of the Month has opened my eyes to genres that I wouldn't have otherwise read. Book of the Month generally is mostly adult titles. They feature a lot of thrillers, a lot of contemporary adult fiction, and a lot of historical fiction or like different fantasy veins. So my goal is to read 12. I want to read one a month. It doesn't have to be one a month, but I figured 12 was a fairly good number considering that you get them monthly. But the concept of reading Book of the Month books with a lot of my friends is going to bring me into my next challenge for myself or goal for myself, and that is to do more buddy reads. I don't necessarily have a set number of buddy reads that I would like to do, but buddy reading, again, has pushed me out of my comfort zone. It's made the whole reading experience kind of a whole revolutionary thing for me, because reading is generally a solitary experience, but reading with people is not only fun, you make really good friends doing it, but they also point out things that you might have missed when you were reading it, and you might be picking up books that somebody else really wants to get to but wasn't really on your radar until you decided to do a buddy read, and it might end up being some of your favorite books, which is how a lot of my top books made it onto my list last year. So that is also going to contribute to out of my comfort zone reading, but buddy reading in general is one of my favorite things to do now, and 2018 was the year that I started doing it, so I just have a general goal of doing more of it. So if any of you guys would like to join me on buddy reading a lot of books, let me know, because I'm always welcome to doing it. Okay, and the few other miscellaneous challenges that I have for myself is to participate in 8 readathons. There are so many readathons that I already plan on participating in every year. I always do Booktubeathon, which got renamed. I forget what it's called already, but I always do Booktubeathon. I generally do Contemporary-athon and Smut-athon because contemporary and smut is very easy to read in a short amount of time, so those are like automatic wins for me. I like doing a Halloween readathon. I feel like 8 is a fairly average amount of readathons that I participate in regularly, so I think that's just a way of me like keeping track of what I'm doing. And the last 2 goals that I have as far as bookish type things go, I would like to reread 10 books. This is something that's fairly common among a lot of people's goals, but it wasn't for me just because in my mind there are so many books coming out constantly. We are constantly being flooded with so many new titles that the idea of taking that couple days out of reading new releases to reread a book that you've already consumed was a struggle for me. Because in my mind, it wasn't wasted time, but it was like time taken away from all of the other new books that I want to read. But recently in this past year, I started hitting the nostalgic thing when it comes to books. Like, a lot of people reread Harry Potter just for the feeling it gives you. It's a comfort read. And I reread Fangirl this past year, and again, I loved it just as much. And I'm reaching the point where a lot of my favorite books are a couple years old, and they're not as fresh in my mind, so I would like to kind of bring them back to the forefront of my mind and remind myself why I like them, or find out if I still like them as much as I thought I did, if that makes sense. So it's gonna be like an experimental thing, but rereading 10 books could easily be like the Harry Potter series and a trilogy. Like, that's 10 books immediately. So I feel like 10 is fairly easy to do, in my opinion. And that being said, another goal that I have that could be very easily attainable within that previous challenge is to read 6 completed series. So that's to read a trilogy that has been completely done and released and over with, but I never got around to, or to read all of the books that are currently out in a series. It doesn't have to be completed. That was just kind of my way of phrasing. Read all of the books that are available in a series, because I feel like I'm very good at starting series, but I'm not so good at finishing series. And a big part of that is because I don't retain the information from a previous book needed to carry on like a year later with the next release. So my goal is to pretty much just binge through series, because that's how I prefer to read series, instead of reading a book, falling in love with it, waiting a year for the next book to come out, forgetting everything, and then struggling with the concept of, should I reread book 1 or should I just try and struggle through book 2 if I don't remember everything? I like the experience of just binging through something. Everything's fresh in my mind. So I have a lot of completed trilogies or long series that are ongoing that I have a lot of the books for. The goal is to get through those. 6 isn't that hard. That's like 6 trilogies, that's 18 books. That's not that big of a deal. So that's another goal that I have. But that being said, that is everything that I'm striving for in 2019. It seems like a lot of goals, but most of them kind of overlap on each other, and it's just more of an effort of me striving to be more conscious of how I read things, what I reach for, and what I should be reaching for more, if that makes sense. Because I like to feel like slightly fulfilled at the end of the year, knowing that I didn't necessarily just read a whole bunch of garbage. Like, I want to know that I read things that were substantial and that I really enjoyed and that are very present in the community that I would like to contribute to the conversation with. So that is it for this video. If you guys have any bookish goals, leave them down in the comments down below, because I kind of like seeing what other people are planning on doing and seeing if I can implement it into my own personal challenges. That's gonna be it for this. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you guys in my next video.